Load shedding getting you down?
Just another day in Africa.
Hey, pal.
Good and you guys?
All good. Took a break last week, but a necessary one. Not so much for a holiday type of break, but audit season in ATO world. So we had to be ready for that. And
Yeah.
anyone in aviation would understand that. So took the week off from the podcast, but certainly didn't take the week off from a break perspective.
No, not last week. But that'll be next week for me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Taking a small break next week, but don't worry, the podcast, there will be a podcast that comes out.
Yeah. Sorry, but it's a bit haphazard. But we're trying to just, as a family unit, make the last little bit of summer count and take the kiddies down to the beach for a bit.
Nothing wrong with that, bro.
And then, we'll just turn and burn for the rest of the year.
That's it. That's how it rolls.
Yeah.
But a lot of news and a lot of it coming out of South Africa this time. But before we get there, can you believe it's been 9 years since MH370 went missing?
Is it 9 years already?
9 years, yeah.
Jeez. I still remember I was flying that day. I was in the cockpit. I was actually flying with Mark Dutton.
Yeah.
We had a long day. We had a PE George.
Doc Mutton.
And it was just before we were leaving for PE on that sector that we heard the news about that. Just. And they still haven't found it, eh?
No.
Nothing.
No, what's your theory on that one? I see there's a movie on Netflix last night, having a bit of a scroll through, and there's a MH370 movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder what they're going to base it on. I mean, it's probably the world's biggest mystery.
It's crazy that, look, there's no definite, look, a lot of conspiracy things about it, of course.
Yeah.
I'm on the conspiracy side of it.
Yeah.
There's no ways. I don't know. I think the last was they pinned the blame on the skipper, hey?
Yeah. There was all sorts of designs on that because he had like a simulator at home, and
Yeah,
most pilots have a simulator at home. Or
but
something
apparently
of
they
sorts.
found some sort of metadata that showed that he
Yeah.
went off course and on the sim and was. But
It's always too easy to blame the pilots, man.
too easy, man.
I got a theory, but I think it's a bit whack.
Let's hear it.
I reckon it was hit by space debris or a meteor.
Yeah.
I think so. Because, I mean, how does something just disappear
Or
and there's no trace of it whatsoever? You had to be hit by something. Maybe
or hit by a freaking missile. No, it's genuine.
possible.
I
yeah.
mean,
Someone sitting there, trigger happy, boop, and then like realize like, oh shit. Oh.
yeah, no, but I mean, it could have been intentionally shot down as well.
Yeah.
Depends
Yeah.
who was on the plane.
Exactly. It wasn't long after that there was that other one. There was also in the Malaysian Airlines that was shot down over Ukraine. Remember
Yeah, but that was
a while
that was
after.
obviously intentionally.
that? Yeah, that was definitely a missile.
Yeah.
I mean, we know about that, but yeah.
Yeah, for it just to disappear. Yeah, a lot of conspiracy. Look, we're not going to dive into there's a
Yeah.
lot more conspiracy things on YouTube about it, but
Yeah.
man, 9 years, pretty crazy. Time
Yeah.
flies. Let's jump into it. I think just going back to our previous show, there was a real split down the middle of some people that really enjoyed it. Like a lot of people got a hold of me and they really enjoyed that little training aspect of it. And then there were others that said, Brian, look, we prefer it when you and Ryan just swear and rip off SAA. So yeah, it was one of those slightly different show, but it enjoyed it nonetheless. Tapped into a slightly different audience.
Yeah. No, look, I think it's fun for us. We've got to explore the limits of our knowledge and talent, I suppose, and see where this podcast goes. And it's nice to be able to sort of go both lanes. You can go really deep when you want to sometimes.
Yeah.
And
So let's
I enjoy
swear.
ripping off SAA as well.
Let's swear and rip off SAA today, shall we?
Yeah.
The big thing coming out of this is SAA pilots that previously worked there have been asked to at least come back for a bit of a talk or whatever it is. I don't know if it's a direct employment type thing, but a lot floating around to say they're very short of pilots now and they need ex-pilots to come back. And on top of that floating around, there's an Excel type spreadsheet of a SAA pilot employment equity plan, with the usual business there, year 1, year 2, African colored, Indian white, total pilots. Doesn't it make you mad?
I just laughed when I saw that because there was a real sort of rinky-dink advert doing the rounds where they're pinging the guys to come back. Please, because they're now woken up to the fact, there aren't enough pilots in South Africa to fill all the quotas, and talk about mysteries. There's a R1 billion that's been found somewhere to keep this joke alive.
Yeah,
and they're obviously gonna now expand allegedly.
Well, we know where it came from. They're zicking R1 billion a month from Eskom, according to De Ruyter. I mean, that interview alone got a lot of South Africans, all of us that are here living in the country, still very, very nervous.
Yeah, talking about getting revved up. I mean, that interview was...
It got a lot of people revved up, got a lot of people nervous, and it's got a lot of people thinking, is there actually any bloody hope? We've never been negative on the show. We're not going to start now. But, man, they're testing the boundaries of where to find positivity in this whole thing. Before we jump into that, let's go to that actual advert. Dear pilots, you're hereby cordially invited to join us for an information session regarding the recall of pilots to South African Airways. The following agenda items will be covered during the session. Available positions, fleets, and SAA career path in the medium term. Salary scales. How do we select South African Airways pilots? The employment equity plan. Placement requirements, psychometric assessments, conditions of employment, training bonds, and then a question and answer session. That's from their manager of flight ops. So a pretty standard thing. It looks like trying to get them there for this talk, and they'll discuss these things. And I wonder, I don't know, and I'm certainly not going to pin any blame on certain pilots that are looking to go back. If you have been unemployed for a period of time and there is an opportunity to come back, we're not going to judge you for that. But there must be an element of selling your soul to the devil there if you do decide to go back there and fly. And particularly, and I think about a lot of these guys that were maybe skippers at the airline, captains, are they not going to go back as first officers? Basically, they've taken the seniority list and
flipped
it, which was always sort of has been spoken about for many, many years. And how's that ever going to happen? Because you had SAPA was very strong, and there's no ways that could happen. Of course, this COVID opportunity was exactly that, a big opportunity. And what do you do?
I suppose one has to be pragmatic. You're going to have to look at your future and say, given the way the country is being run at the moment, and how stable is this version 2? If were an SAA pilot and you've gone back and you've managed to establish yourself at somewhere like SAFE now, and you've got a good thing going, would you really leave SAFE to go back to SAA? SAFE is looking way more stable, and there's longevity there, and there's a career there, as opposed to going back to the SAA version 605.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think guys are going to have to think long and hard and take a few things into account before they jump back at that.
Well, we've got a lot of friends, ex-colleagues at airlines now, flying around South Africa and Africa. A lot of them not in ideal jobs, away from families. A lot of them not even close to the previous salary scale they were on. If SA Express started up shop again tomorrow, Ryan, would you be would you think some of those guys I'm speaking about would go back? I'm pretty sure that they would.
I think a lot of guys would go back because there would be this idea that
things have changed, and
I think a lot of people are still holding on to what the airline used to be. Me personally, not a chance. But
no, me neither. But I'm pretty sure that there are some out there that would look at this as we can get back to our old jobs. And I think probably a few more of those SAA pilots than we think, possibly considering going back. However, I have heard a lot of them have given the big middle finger there to say not a fuck, we're not going back.
Nice one.
Which is great,
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's not going to be the case for everyone.
Yeah, look, I mean, different strokes for different folks, and I guess I'm glad that there are opportunities opening up for all the guys out there. And it definitely is worldwide expanding. We said it last week. There are plenty jobs available. I just don't want to see guys get stung by, operators like SAA again, because that's bound to happen. I just don't see a future there for that airline at all.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Sorry, I'm starting to sound negative, and it's not the case. It's just there's a big difference between being negative and realistic.
Well, I think it's a sore point with everyone that's dealing with so much in the country at the moment. The load shedding that we're all dealing with. We mentioned the whole De Ruyter interview. I think a lot of South Africans actually, that was for once like a real non-woke interview. It was just a CEO blatantly saying, this is how it is.
Yeah.
There was no like agenda. There was no bullshit. It was definitely
hard truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard truth, and it kind of made you think afterwards. And, they're going after him now, saying he must provide proof and all the rest. But, one thing he did say, R1 billion a month, he estimates going missing. And then you look at that, and with all the load shedding and your generator costs and extra time getting to and from work in traffic because the traffic lights aren't working, accidents almost at every single traffic light. You see glass broken everywhere because some just forget that there were traffic lights there, particularly at night. I mean, you drive down this Atlas Road at night when I've got a late simulator session, and if there's load shedding, man, it's dark. And you can't see those traffic lights.
You can't.
And,
it's actually scary because now you don't necessarily want to stop when it's dark. And then, but you're not sure, is someone else coming from the other side and are they thinking the same thing? So you it just becomes...
It's a scary one.
Yeah, it's like the wild, wild west.
We also have a new transport minister. And she was Fikile Mbulula's deputy since 2021.
Okay.
So she held the same deputy position from May 2014 to May 2019. Don't know much about her. I've never heard of her. Again, you often when these things come out, you're never quite sure.
I think you got to just give it time. I mean, there's been a lot of hype this whole week about this whole cabinet reshuffle.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I watched a little bit of it the other night, trying to piece together, are things going to improve after this whole thing? Or is there a push to move things in the right direction? I don't know. I think it's all just smoke and mirrors, but it's nice to see that old Prav has taken a back seat.
Well, I think he had to.
Yeah.
I mean, there was another article came out linked again to him a little bit. It was... a Mango story. I haven't managed to actually get that whole story, but the potential buyer for Mango, and it again went into the whole DPE situation and how they try to shut the whole thing down. And of course, this has been going on a hell of a long time, again at the cost of the South African taxpayer.
Yeah.
So all this stuff, you throw it all in a big soup bowl, and it really does stink. It really does.
Yeah.
And yeah, man.
That's
Ryan, I don't know, man.
Yeah, you know what, but we'll just
stick with it.
Yeah, stay
Keep
positive.
Going. Stay positive, yeah.
And crack on.
For your weekly motivation, tune in to the Brian Air podcast.
Yeah, or listen to Jordan Peterson. But
yeah. But I still maintain South African aviation is still in a very, very strong place. You can't take South African Airways and then say, they're in a poor situation, but you look at the likes of Airlinks, Airlift, all the rest.
Oh man,
doing such a good job. Semair as well, and they just growing strength to strength. So South African aviation still very good. And one of the things that we often miss, Ryan, we speak about these airlines that operate flying passengers around South Africa, but there's a lot of other very, very sharp contract operators that are flying in and around Africa, all around the world, that are also in very, very strong positions. They're also employing a lot of pilots.
Yeah.
And we train some of these guys, and some of these operators are very, very, very sharp.
Yeah.
They're very, very sharp.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, that as well as the charter sector, the charter companies that are out there are phenomenal.
Yeah.
They're booming and they're running good, tight operations.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. The aviation sector in South Africa very strong, where it's not being meddled with by government.
Yeah.
We were saying the other night, weren't you trying to book your mom a ticket up from Cape Town on SAA
Yeah.
and
just full, man.
for April or something, and you said it was just like impossible to get a ticket.
It's just limited stuff available.
Yeah. So, yeah, clear indication. And I mean, I hear that often. Mates of mine saying, geez, I can't get up because there's just no flights. Or I had a family member that had to come up from Cape Town the other day as well. And it was, tickets available for at least 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the guys doing internal flights, airlines are strong, and like I say, the guys doing contract as well. The whole COVID thing was a reshuffle for the whole industry. You ended up with a lot of airline pilots flying at these contract operators. They've taken the professionalism of the airlines through to these contracts and charter jobs and that, and it's quite nice to see. And now you're actually at a point where a lot of these guys on contract flying 1900s, they can't come back to South Africa and go fly as an FO for Safair or Airlink because they ain't going to earn enough money. Simple as that. Yeah. So they're staying on contract.
Yeah.
And you're getting these sort of professional 1900 drivers and Dash 8 drivers and things like that. Better for the industry. I mean, the contract companies have good pilots, and the guys seem to be sticking there. The one thing that has caused a bit of an issue, I suppose, for a lot of South African operators, as the world has now opened up, the Aussies are flocking to the United States, and of course the
South Africans
are flocking to Oz. and we got some mates there, and they're doing really, really well at the moment. I mean,
yeah, it's true what you say. I mean, a good thing for the the contract operators as well. They've managed to inherit good quality airline pilots. They're operating better, so their contracts are doing better. But I think, as we were talking about it yesterday, I think it was, I think the airline pilots that are on contract now are actually also finding the change in working lifestyle a bit different. You don't have the airline monotony. You've got the contract sort of fun.
Yes. Well, I actually overheard a guy speaking. I won't mention his name, but he was just saying, he's not going back to the airline side. He kind of gets the vibe of the contract, and he's like, and this was an ex-Spuri's skipper, and he's like, no ways, he's staying on contract. The contract comes around at the right time, gets back in his routine on contract, comes back, and so look, it's opened things up. I do think that the lure of the safety of Oz is going to create a bit of a hole here in South Africa in terms of expertise, not just in aviation, but sort of across the board.
Yeah.
But while pilots are in demand, I think a lot of guys are going to take that opportunity.
Yeah.
And, stand by for, quite a few Aussie road shows and that coming to South Africa soon. And you will see a bit of a flock of pilots across to Oz, which is great for the guys that want to take the opportunity. But you do look at it and you wonder, where are these pilots going to come from that are now going to fill the gaps here locally?
Yeah.
I know the flight schools and that are busy, but they're not big enough, and they're not enough to fill these gaps. You start adding aircraft on. What do they look at these days? 5 crews per aircraft. So Safair goes and adds another aircraft, 4 or 5 more crews, 8 pilots that they need. So a lot, man.
Yeah. No, it's going to have a ripple effect
across the board,
down the chain, all the way. I mean, guys flocking to Oz. Got a lot of guys still leaving for the Middle East.
Yes.
And what's it going to do to their overall experience gap is the big question here in South Africa. And what are airlines going to do now going forward to retain pilots and retain the experience?
This is the big thing. South Africa has definitely been behind the curve for a long time in what the earnability of a pilot, what you can actually earn.
Yeah.
Did you read what happened with Delta the other day?
Smart move, eh?
Smart move, man. So, read it and weep, pilots flying in other parts of the world. But Delta pilots just got approved a new contract with a huge pay raise. They're looking at basically, so that's to 15,000 pilots, Ron. No small airline there.
Yeah.
78% of those 15,000 voted in favor of this this new contract. The contract itself, $7.2 billion it's worth over the course of 4 years. Pilots will immediately receive an 18% pay increase as of the day the contract is signed. Pilots will receive a 5% pay increase 1 year after that. Pilots will then receive 4% pay increases in the next 2 years that follow that. Pilots will receive a one-time payment of 4% of 2020 and 2021 pay, plus a 14% payment of the 2022 pay. This is the interesting one. In the event that American Airlines or United negotiate a contract with better pay, Delta will get that pay matched plus 1%.
Yes, what a scheme. I mean, yeah, that's thinking ahead of the ball because, I mean,
I dig that because,
yeah.
I mean, for so long with us, at SA Express, the union with pretty much out any clause, and you weren't really able to dig into any sort of package that would want to keep guys there, ultimately very long term. And I mean, we know you're not oblivious to what's going on, around Africa. There's certain parts of Africa where you can go and earn, but you see something like this. This is their equivalent of SAA.
Exactly.
And that seems like a real increase. And to tie it to the fact that, hang on, we're going to now rely on our friends at American and United to go and negotiate better pay as well. Because if they do, then we also going to get that pay increase. I love that because now you've actually pooled the pilot resources together and you're making a much more powerful pilot group in the country. I think that's really, really cool. And I'm very interested to see where this goes.
I hope the airlines pay attention to this because, I mean, if they're smart,
well, they will.
You wouldn't want, if I'm the boss of Airlink, my pilots leaving for SAFAir because they're going to just get better money. I mean, this is the kind of thing that's going to make the pilots think twice. Well, I'm happy where I am. I've got seniority. I'm not going to jump ship for any more money, so why make the move? So it's a smart play. Yeah, in the long run,
it is a smart play. I also do you not think if you just take South Africa for a minute? Now the show today is very focused on the South African element, but if you take a pilot who's at, say, Airlink, flying a 145 or an E-Jet, in the past you would possibly see some of those guys moving across to SAFAir or Comair at the stage to basically get your 737 time, so that you're eligible for a job somewhere else.
Yeah.
But the shift that I'm seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is what I see. And I don't know if it's because of our age or our experience in the flight deck, but I see people caring a lot less these days about what you're actually flying.
It's about earning
money
and being able to maintain a lifestyle.
But the aircraft is out of it. Whereas if you go back 10 years, it was all about what you're flying.
Yeah.
There's guys flying Embraer 120s in Oz. They're loving life, and they don't care it's an Embraer 120. There might be an E-Jet, at some point, but no one really cares. But that shift of guys going from, say, Link to SAFAir, I'm not so sure that's really still happening unless it's for that little bit of a pay increase, because you're seeing guys from Link going straight onto Airbuses and Boeings in other parts of the world now. You don't actually have to make that little internal
exactly. Going back 10 years, the reason there was always such a push to, fly a better aircraft type was because if you wanted to go to Emirates, you had to have, what was it, 1,000 or 2,000 hours on something above 50 tons.
Yeah.
So there was always those boxes that you had to tick. I think
Yes.
that was a big motivator for guys wanting to fly other areas. Like
Yeah.
you say, right now that doesn't make a difference. You can have 500 hours on a PC-12 and then jump straight into a 777.
Yeah.
As long as, but that's obviously by virtue of the pilot shortage.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's making the difference.
But it's cool.
It is cool.
I like the fact that it doesn't matter what you're flying. If there's a little bit more of a broader sense of the total package, the total lifestyle.
Yeah.
Going back to this Delta, there's quality of life improvements as well. Things like 10 weeks of paid maternity leave, 2 weeks of paid paternal leave, significantly improved crew meals, improved health insurance, and more. Interestingly, the contract also includes a provision that establishes medical freedom protections. I'm not so sure those things will be discussed at SAA's Roadshow.
Highly doubt it.
Delta's most senior captains will be earning roughly $440 an hour. That's around $440K a year.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of ZARs.
Yes.
And article ends by saying you can bet that both executives and unions at American and United are watching very closely, because it probably gives them a sense of what they can expect to pay. And of course, Delta will get 1% on top.
Yeah. Awesome. And across the pond.
Across the pond, yeah. Give us the Aussie voice.
Qantas reveals plans for 8,500 new high-skilled jobs.
That's it.
Couldn't resist.
Yeah.
But good news.
Good news, man.
Oh.
8,500. No small thing. This is the positive stuff that's coming out everywhere else. That's why it's so... It irks me so much to start the show today talking about our issues that we're having, our sort of individual issues that we're having.
Yeah.
Because everywhere else it's cooking.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what do you say, hey? The joys of SA at the moment. But yeah, I'm ecstatic to see that things are really
Picking up.
harping up across the world. I mean, Qantas, new positions will include 1,600 pilots, 800 engineers, 4,500 cabin crew members, 1,600 airport staff, and the other remaining 3,000 will obviously be baggage handlers.
Qantas Group, comprising mainline operator Qantas and low-cost unit Jetstar, will hire more than 30,000 frontline staff over the next decade.
Yeah. No, the fleet expansion is also pretty good.
It is.
So
straight after that Delta article came out and the contract got signed, straight afterwards, and actually the next sort of article in the sequence there, title is "No Pilot, No Problem. Here's how soon self-flying aircraft will take off." So this whole thing's taken off again. Now, we've spoken about this before. It's still quite a way, and there was a threat at one point that the A350 would be a single crew aircraft staying a dual crew aircraft. But Dave Calhoun, the Boeing CEO, revealed an open secret in the world of aviation. He says, "I think the future of autonomy is real for civil aviation." And that was on Bloomberg TV. It's going to take time. Everyone's got to build confidence. We need a certification process, and we have to have faith and believe in it. The aircraft are already here. Pilot unions are preparing for battle, and the FAA is playing it cool. Autonomous flight is coming to civil aviation sooner than you think.
Nah.
Well,
I don't know.
UBS estimated that autonomous planes could save the air transportation industry more than $35 billion US a year, and they reckon it'll, of course, start on the cargo side of things.
Yeah, that makes sense. On the cargo side, I guess.
Well, they're gonna start it with cargo to build the confidence of the general public.
Yeah.
And then it will shift across to civil at some point. Look, it's just that will happen. There's absolutely anyone that says it won't. You don't know what you're talking about. That will happen. It's just a time factor situation.
Yeah.
When is that going to happen?
Well, David Calhoun hasn't only been in the news for that, though.
Yeah. He's been under fire, that guy.
Yeah, he has.
What's his latest issue?
So, Boeing 737 MAX and 787 deliveries are being delayed.
Yeah.
And this time all because of software issues.
Yes.
So he's out on the defense for that. But, Boeing just don't seem to be being able to position themselves out of
chaos.
Yeah, they're constantly under attack at the moment.
Yeah, they're also very cautious about things, and they go and actually they put it on the media if they notice something, there was an issue, slow down the 787 production again because of something there.
Yeah.
It was actually, I started reading the story. I thought it would be a good one for the podcast, but it was actually such a boring story.
Yeah,
they just slowed the production down. I think they're so cautious about any issues.
Yeah, taking it extra careful.
Yeah. Shout out to a flight attendant the other day. Did you read the story about the dude that was arrested trying to open the emergency door and then attacked a flight attendant with a spoon? A Massachusetts man arrested after attempting to open an airplane door midair and then trying to stab the flight attendant with a broken spoon. The captain radioed air traffic control, told them that this oak had been detained by passengers but was not going quietly. He needed 6 people to restrain him, and the plane landed safely. So the cabin crew member actually shot out there because stuff like this, can be catastrophic. But cabin crew member noticed that the emergency door, the flap that covers the handle on the emergency door, had been taken off and the actual handle had been pulled halfway. So this oak was obviously trying to open that door. He doesn't know anything about a pressurized aircraft, of course, but he was obviously couldn't quite work out why this door wasn't opening, and pulling, and he was getting, and then the cabin crew member saw him. And apparently this oak also pacing up and down the galley and all sorts. So they noticed it and they managed to detain him.
Yeah.
That's why you have to know Jiu Jitsu.
I just knew you were going to say it. I was waiting. Brian's going to say, I recommend all cabin crew.
All cabin crew members. Yeah.
Shucks.
Particularly in South Africa.
Yeah, no, look. Speaking about Jiu Jitsu, how's that fight? I got your message on Sunday morning saying, "But check this out." And look, all 2.5 minutes of it.
Yeah, how's that? Eh?
The build-up was spectacular. The fight was over in a flash, but pretty good fight.
It was a good fight, eh?
Jones.
Staying with sport, what about the F1?
Ah, man. Listen, what a race. I love the comeback that Alonso has pulled. Obviously a big team effort there with old Aston Martin.
Alonso's my dude for this year.
I tell you what, I was watching all the preseason build up, and I had a suspicion that Alonso was going to come back hard. He's been putting it out there, and phenomenal race, first podium in a long time, and he still commented during the race like, "This is a lovely car to drive." So he was having fun.
Yes,
he was enjoying that car like we enjoy podcasting.
Yes,
so it could only end well.
So I'm going to throw this out there as well. Ryan and I are going to try something this year for the Formula One. I don't know if any of you have ever watched the Flight Companion on Rogan's podcast when they sort of overlay what's happening in the UFC. So we'll try and do one of those. So if you want the Parrock Rosevear commentary during one of the F1 races, we'll try it through the year. I think it'll be quite a cool thing to do.
That'll be a big jewel. I mean, a lot of our mates enjoy Formula One, and I think the banter that comes out of it is spectacular. I mean, because you mentioned it, but someone we know quite well, obviously, had a spectacular weekend watching sports.
It'll be particularly fun if Hamilton maintains his recent reign of form during our commentary session there. But what you are going to see this year, you can tell already, although Red Bull was quite far ahead, those cars are pretty close. And with the updates and that come to these other teams, I think you're going to find big differences from track to track.
Yes.
So, they go to Saudi next, a very different track to this Bahrain track. It might be a totally different car that excels on that track. I think it's going to make this year really exciting.
No, it's going to make Formula One so much fun to watch. And I do think, look, as good and as far ahead as both Red Bull and Ferrari are, both those teams are under pressure. I mean, Aston have come up there, AlphaTauri, Alpine, all of them. And I think Mercedes, to a degree, will work their things out as they go through the year. So it's going to be a contentious Formula One season to watch, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, don't you worry that Mercedes will be flying by mid-season probably. So, no, they're going to be a threat. Yeah. But the other sport that you mentioned there, 7-0 Liverpool versus Man U the other day. What a game. Look, Liverpool have just been nowhere for the last 2 years. I don't know what's happened. I think Klopp trying to grow a young team there, but it's been a bit of a nightmare for a Liverpool supporter. Yeah. So to have the biggest match of the year is Liverpool Man United at Anfield or Old Trafford. Look, I'm sorry, but those are the two biggest teams. That's the biggest game, regardless of where everyone is in the title race. Liverpool, Man United, you can basically base your season to a degree on who came out on top in that game. And man, on Sunday evening, to see 7 goals go in the back of the net against Man U, man, what a game!
Yeah. I tell you what, and the jokes coming out afterwards were hilarious. I see Man U now sponsored by 7-Up, and I love it.
Yeah, that was cool. So sport really is keeping things alive. So when you are feeling a bit down or whatever, get into the sport. And if it's load shedding at your house, and go find a pub somewhere that's showing the football or the F1. Yeah, can sort your weekend out pretty nicely.
Make it feel like good old times.
Yeah, sport is good that way.
Yeah.
Sport is good that way. It gives you that sort of bit of energy as well to go out and do something maybe in your own life,
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's a good distraction from all the other stuff that bogs you down during the week. So
we mentioned my Jiu Jitsu story. It's going well.
You hanging in there?
Yeah, I got hammered again last night.
Oh, jeez.
Man, it's tiring.
Yeah.
It is. You just get gassed out totally. I mean, it's an hour. They call it rolling. It's when you basically fighting another, like you're rolling. And you actually don't fight in jiu-jitsu, you play. It's like a game. So it's like it's a hell of a thing. But it's helping in other areas of my life, no question. Because it's difficult. It's really, really difficult. Like chess for your body. It's really difficult. But picking up little things every week and learning little things every week. And then what it also does, Ryan, and this just to end off today with something that I think is important. When you start something new, the hobby itself or whatever you're doing is important because it's this new thing that's taking up a piece of your life that you enjoy. But I know you like this also. When you dive into something new, it opens up a whole realm of other experiences because suddenly what you're watching on YouTube changes.
Oh, yeah.
You're now looking at like jiu-jitsu videos of how to do this and how to do that. And your podcasts change. You start listening to other stuff. So it just broadens a whole range of other experiences, which is really, really cool. Because you do get stuck in your ways. And I know a lot of people that listen to this show, they've been listening to us from the beginning. And you stick to your, 4 or 5 podcasts or your 4 or 5 YouTube channels. So you actually need something else from time to time just to take you away from your everyday stuff. Get this new sort of hobby, this new passion, and like really dive into it and then see what happens. That Jordan Peterson saying as well, work as hard as you can on one thing and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that means. It's that you're diving into this thing, explore it, research it, watch videos, listen to new things, go and do it, take action on it, go and do it, and then see what happens. It's too early to tell, what's going to happen with me there. But, man, if I take where I was when I started in, November last year to now, is a huge, huge, huge improvement. Because you know what it's like when you start your PPL. You know nothing about aviation. A month later, you're flying solo. You're flying that aircraft by yourself. The learning curve is massive. And then it tapers off a bit for a big period of time, and then it goes gradually again. And I'm sort of at that PPL stage of this massive improvement every week. And at our age, when you hit the 40s there, it's nice to go back to something like that, because I think most guys at that stage have actually got to a point in their career where they know how to do it. They don't really have to think too much about it. They, what it's like in the flight deck, set everything up, put everything on, checklist, read it. You can read the checklist without even looking at the checklist. And not that you should do that, but you basically can. So it's nice at this stage of life to go and start something from scratch again, and then realize the coolness, the benefit of that, and then try and take it into other elements of your life.
I've certainly seen it as well. I mean, I picked up a guitar for the first time, in August last year. And, the small little gains that you make week on week, from not knowing anything about it to now being able to sort of bang out one or two songs, not extremely well, like, ready to go and play on stage or anything, but enough to know that, hey, I can do this.
Making progress.
Not knowing anything about it a couple of months ago it's so good for you, man. It's really, really nice to be able to also know that you still have the ability to learn. Like you said, we're getting into our 40s now, and very often, guys say that learning process slows down, but you can still pick things up. So, love it.
Awesome.
Cool.
Have a lovely weekend, pal.
See you later.
Have a good one. Bye
Cheers.
for now.